I want to talk about drafting in board games. Now, the concept of drafting isn't entirely new or foreign because we see it in things like the NFL, where they have a draft, or if you play fantasy sports, you'll have, your draft. And so this mechanism of drafting within games isn't anything new, and hopefully it's not anything completely foreign to you. But my hopes in this video is two things. One, I want to kind of expound on more on what drafting is and how it's evolved in games and become a little more, what you would say, for lack of better terms, complicated. And two, I just want to give a recommendation of like what would be a good idea for a drafting game. So to use some game theory stuff, a drafting game is what's called a non-zero sum game, which basically means players are fighting over resources. These resources don't exist anywhere else outside of the world, or outside of the world of the game. So for example, if there are only 3 $1 bills in the entire world, and I have 2 of them, there's no possible way for you to have more than 1. You might have 0, you might have 1, but there's no way for you to have 2 because there's only 3 in the entire world. That's a non-zero sum game. Players are fighting over finite resources. On the other side, which is a sum game, a zero-sum game, is a game where people aren't fighting over resources directly. Basically, the resources are infinite. And this is represented like, let's say, I'll use Monopoly. When you get money from Monopoly, pass go, collect money, you collect it from the bank. You don't collect it from another player. And there's always an infinite amount of money in the game. It's never amount of, this is the only money that we have, you guys have to fight over it. And so when it comes to drafting, it's really important about turn order. Well, first let me talk about the 2 different types of drafting. And there might be more, but I'm just going to hit on 2. The first one is simultaneous drafting, and then the second one is like a turn order drafting. So simultaneous drafting happens simultaneous. So you and I will draft from individual pools at the same time. So I'm going to draft something from pool A, you'll draft from pool B, we'll do it at the same time, then switch and draft, switch and draft. And what we're drafting in games could be anything. Just what I use the word is resources. So it could be anything from people, like in the NFL, or weapons, or goods, wood, sheep, anything that you could use that's a resource of finite amount of things. And so simultaneous is where we both are going to be picking at the same time from kind of categorized somehow pool. Turn order drafting is basically kind of like the football. Like I get first draft, I get first pick, you get second pick, you get third pick, which means that in drafting games, it is incredibly important, it's paramount that you go first, that you get first pick, because first pick is you're always going to take the best. So if on our table that we have here, we have a $1 bill, a $5 bill, and a $10 bill. If you go first, I'm going to be taking the $10 bill. That means whoever goes second is going to take the 5. Whoever goes third takes the 1. Pretty basic, not much of a game, but at least that's an example of how turn order matters. It's not simultaneous. I'm going to go, then you're going to go, then Bill's going to go. And so what games have done is they've made those resources kind of mean different things. Now I'm talking in monetary values because people can understand money. $1 bill, $10 bill. So I'll try to stick with that analogy. Let's say that instead there were a bunch of bills, a bunch of 1s, a bunch of 5s, and a bunch of 10s. Well, still, if I'm going first, I'm still going to take a 10, right? I'm going to take a $10 bill. But what if in the rules of the world that we're playing in, this $10 bill doesn't mean anything? It's worth 0. unless if I can collect 2 of them. If I can collect 2 $10 bills, they won't be worth 20. They'll just be worth $10. But I need to have 2, because if I get 1, I have nothing. Okay, that's fine. I go first. I pick a $10 bill. I still have $0. I could pick a 5 and have $5. Automatic, it's guaranteed $5. Or 1, and have $1. It's guaranteed. But I'm going to go for the 10. But I have $0, essentially. Well, when it comes back around to my turn, well, I'm going to take another 10 because I want sets to get my $10 because I want $10. Now, what if there wasn't enough resources of $10 bills for everyone to make sets? Because it's like I take a 10, Johnny takes a 10, Sally takes a 10. We all just keep going around until we all have sets of 10s. So what if there's 1 less than the player count, or 2 less, where it's like not everyone can make their sets? Then you really think, do I have first pick? Do I go for the 10, knowing that I need to get sets of 2, or 4, whatever, get even sets? Or do I just go for the for sure thing and just collect 5s every turn on my turn? Because those 5s are going to add up, because every 5 will mean something, as opposed to the 10s. If I can't match them up, I'm going to have a goose egg. I'm going to have nothing. And so the simultaneous drafting is where you're kind of passing off these categories of resources, so to speak, however they're divvied depends on the game. Sometimes it's just a matter of shuffling cards and passing cards to each other. A game that would exemplify that would be like a sushi go. There's also a draft at the beginning of Near and Far, where you're drafting certain items and objectives and stuff, and all that's hidden. So like I'm picking things and passing and to the other player. And then there's kind of player turn-based drafting, where there's you basically just say I go first, you go second, and then Bill's going to go third. And so how games have moved on, like I said, by creating sets. And then what if something was with the 5s as well? What if I get 1 5, it's worth $5, but if I get 2 5s, it's worth 15, and then 3 is 30? Like, what if it's exponential? Then do I go for the 5s? Well, what's the limit on 5s compared to the player count? So I'm just trying to use money, like dollar bills, but I mean, the resource could be anything, but they come up with rules as far as what's going to pay off in dollars, in this case, points, cards that will allow you to do other abilities, so like powerful cards that have abilities to them. And so that's kind of the 2 different things that I want to talk about drafting, and how drafting has become a little more, like I said, use the word complex lately, as far as it's not just a matter of I take the 10, you take the 5, so-and-so is going to take the 1. What kind of game is there? What is the challenge as far as knowing that what I take now might not be there by the time it gets back to me, which is especially with Sushi Go, which is a simultaneous drafting selection game. I look at a hand of cards and I go, ooh, I want this one. I have to have 2 of them, but I know that there's another one in this hand, but I have to pass it to my another player, and hope that they don't take, let's say I take a yellow card, but I need 2 yellow cards to get any points. But there's another yellow card in this deck or hand of cards. Give it to my player or the other player. They don't know that I've taken a yellow, or maybe they do. And so it's like, do I take a gamble, kind of a risk-reward type thing of, will I end up with nothing? Because at the end of the round, my 1 yellow, it's going to mean nothing. But if I can get that second yellow, if you pass on the second yellow in that hand, and it comes back to me, ooh, I'll take that yellow. Now I've just scored 100 points or whatever. Which brings to the fact of there's a term called hate drafting. I don't really like the term because it hate is the thing. It's a weird term. But hate drafting is basically saying I'm taking something not because I need it, but because I know you need it. And so I don't want you to complete your set of three, whatever. Or I don't want you to complete your set of, the $10 bill example. I don't want you to get your second $10. So I'm going to take that $10. Well, what does that mean for you? Nothing. Zero, because you don't have another $10 bill. But at least you're not going to get it on your turn. And they call that hate drafting. It's just some people play a little bit more aggressive strategy-wise as far as what they look at around the table and things like that. So that's kind of what drafting is about in games. And it's implemented in a bunch of different games at the start of games, or like near and far, or while games are being played, like Sushi Go. And then another one which I want to talk about. So I'll move on to the next portion where I will talk about a drafting game that isn't. I was going to grab Sushi Go and talk about it. It's a light kids game. It's got funny, cute little artwork and things like that. It's a simultaneous drafting game. But I wanted to show off something that's like, hey, if you want something that's got more depth, more levels of complexity, more strategy that you need to worry about or think about on your turn, what can I do? Because what if I can draft from the pool of resources, but then we also add a money value to it. So it's like, I want to take that sheep because I need sheep for this, but sheep costs $10. Well, I have to draft this first to get the money to be able to take the sheep so that I can pay for the sheep. And that's kind of how this game works, because there's a money aspect to it. And so the game is called The Networks. It was a Kickstarter game that I picked up on Amazon. And in The Networks, the theme of the game is you are a television channel executive. You're a programmer. And so you own a television station, and you are deciding what shows you are putting on your station. And so you are drafting cards from a pool from the middle of the table, and all the cards are celebrities, advertisements, and most importantly, television shows. And so there are television shows that are more popular than others, but on your board, you have a board that basically says your time slots. So I believe you have a 8 o'clock, a 9 o'clock, and a 10 o'clock time slot. Well, you might draft a sports show. Well, a sports show is better on at 7 o'clock, at 8 o'clock than it is at 10 o'clock. So I'm going to get more viewers, i.e. points, if I draft it and I have an 8 o'clock slot open. So again, there's more levels of to drafting than just, well, what's going to give me the most points right now. It's also what's going to give me points and what do I have available on my own personal tableau as far as min-maxing my points and things like that. And so the Networks is really good because, again, like I said, you have to get money as well. So then there's advertisements that you sign with. Say, hey, I'm going to play your commercial, you're going to pay me money, and so I get money to draft new shows, to have better shows, get more viewers. The most viewers wins. This is a cool game because the artwork's silly and it's all parodied. So all the shows, instead of Lost, it's Found. Instead of How I Met Your Mother, it's How I Left Your Father, things like that. So they kind of worked around the whole intellectual property or like copyright thing, and they just did shows that were all parodies. So that's The Networks. So that's pretty much all I really wanted to say about drafting, is the fact that it's more than just picking these days in games, that there's more aspects, there's different levels to it. As far as, like I said, even in The Networks, you have two different levels because you're like, A, what time slot do I have? What can I afford that I can put on at 8 o'clock so I can maximize my viewers? And then B, can I afford it? Because I also have a budget that I'm running off of in the game. So it's still just it's a drafting game. That's really what it is. But it's added these levels of complexity where you're thinking of like, I've got to balance a budget, I've got to manage these time slots, I got to make cards kind of go where they need to go. Now I can put ESPN on at 10 o'clock, even though it wants to be on at 8 o'clock, but it's not going to yield me the viewers. So to really maximize your potential in the game for viewers, you really want to line those things up. So that'd be a good game to check out. It's a drafting game. Sushi Go, like I said, is good for kids. And so that's all I'm going to say for drafting mechanic for now. I think the next time that I do a video, I talk about drafting, I might be doing a video where it'll be talking a little more about real life and just drafting in a practical sense from day to day in the gamification of life, rather than talking about board games. But anyways, other than that, that's it from me, and I will see you all at the next video.